Well, Lauren, thank you so much for being on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I'm really excited to have you here. We've got some really interesting things to talk about, in particular about mindset. But before we get started, why don't you just introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's really very exciting. Well, my name's Lauren and my business is Lemon Tree Coaching and Development. And I started my business just over a year ago. And I'm a hypnotherapist and NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. I'm an NLP Master Coach. I support people who are struggling with their negative emotions and struggling with their limiting beliefs. And that's really the basis of creating a really good mindset, by sort of being able to identify what's holding you back and working on those problem areas so that you can actually be the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really, really passionate about. I've done a lot of work on my own mindset, and I really love helping other people work on their mindset. So yeah, so that's sort of what I do. And I bring hypnosis into that. And people have a bit of a, oh, what's hypnosis? Are you going to make me dance like a chicken or something like that? And I actually see hypnosis as just another linguistic coaching tool in able to support mindset. So yeah, I'm really, really super passionate about how all these things can sort of work together.
Oh my gosh. And I'm excited about that because I always say that one of the biggest lessons I had when I started my business is, practicality, statistics, planning, strategy, all those kind of things. That's only about 20% of what makes success in a business, and 80% is all mindset. And that has been one of the biggest learning curves for me in particular. So I'm very fascinated when it comes to mindset and talking about that. But talk to us a little bit about your success story. This is something I always am intrigued about, because I'm very intrigued always to hear how everybody's so unique and how everybody's journey has evolved from one to the other. So how did you get started as a hypnotherapist, as a coach, and how has that kind of evolved to where you are now?
Okay, well, I spent a lot of time working in the hospitality industry. And for anyone who's ever worked in a pub or a restaurant or a hotel or anything like that, you'll know that it's a really busy environment. You're on the go all the time. There's very little allocated time to development for team members. And because of that, as a manager in that environment, I developed my coaching skills, because it was a really effective way of having quick conversations with people that would really enhance their development and, help them perform really successfully, which is, of course, what we all want in our workplace. So I was doing this for quite a long time. And I then met my future husband, who worked a more traditional 9-to-5 job. And I realised that maybe hospitality wasn't quite the lifestyle that I wanted going forward for the future. So I started looking at what I could do instead, and those transferable skills. And I went to work in a GP surgery. And I ran a GP surgery for about 18 months. And I supported the doctors in how they manage their appointments and lots of strategic stuff, as well as doing lots of coaching to support mindset. And so, again, a really busy environment that actually, the time to dedicate on personal development is really hard. So I did that for about 18 months, and I was headhunted by a training company who specializes in training leaders and also GP surgery receptionists. And I went to work for them, and they introduced me to the world of NLP. So this was the idea that, how we talk to ourselves really impacts, how we behave, and all of the internal communication that we have, how that affects our external communication. And I found it absolutely fascinating. It was like everything I'd already knew was now explained to me, and I loved that. Oh. So I decided I wanted to become an NLP practitioner. And as part of that training, I also learned about timeline therapy, which links to hypnosis as more linguistic coaching. So that was my practical sort of qualifications. I had already decided that one day I wanted my own business. I didn't know what I was going to do, whether I was going to start my own hospitality business, like run a pub, or whether I was going to be a trainer and, you know, really use all those new skills that I've been learning as a trainer, or whether I was going to set up as a coach. I just didn't know. I knew I would find out, but I didn't know what it was going to be. So I was just quite happy plodding along. And then I did my NLP and timeline therapy practitioner training, and the light bulb just hit. I knew that this process of releasing negative emotions, releasing limiting beliefs, was life-changing. It completely changed my outlook. And I went from, yeah, I'll do that one day, to, oh my goodness, I want to do this in the foreseeable future, really quite soon. And that's what I decided I was going to do. I decided I was going to set up my own coaching and development company, supporting people to release negative emotions. I was in a 12-month contract, and I was about halfway through that. So this was in the January, and the contract was due to run out in early September. I came back from the course all really excited. I'm going to use all this stuff, and I'm going to start maybe creating a website and doing some of those, you know, you mentioned those practical things, that 20% that we seem to put so much onus on in the early stages of starting a business. But I thought, oh, I've got all these months to start doing some stuff with that. And then I discovered I was pregnant with my first baby. And I had a good old think about this, and I thought, this is absolutely fantastic. This is exactly what I wanted, but this doesn't fit timeline-wise with starting a business. My baby's due in October. I was going to start a business in September. I jumped on Google and I typed in, how do you start a business when pregnant? And the answer, don't do it. Everywhere I looked, it just said, don't do it. You'd be mad. It's too difficult. All of this kind of stuff. And I just was like, why is there no one out there saying, go for it? If you want to do it, you can do it. So I decided I was going to be that person. I decided at that moment that I was going to quit my job and I was going to start my business then. And this was in April or March, April last year. And that's what I did. I decided I was going to be the person, the beacon of the people saying, you can do this if it's what you want to do. And I realized at that point that it was all about mindset. It was all about releasing any limiting beliefs that I was still holding on to, whether they were about myself and my self-esteem, my confidence, imposter syndrome. I had to get rid of those. Whether it was about money, whether I had stories around money that were, you know, money's hard to come by, or, you know, I can't handle money, I'm not very good with money. Those kind of stories, they had to get lost. And that's how I was going to make it work. And that's what I've been doing. So I set up my coaching and development business, and I've been working with clients over the last year. Some clients I see on a one-on-one basis, just one-off, and we do some really in-depth work to release negativity and release limiting beliefs. And some clients I see on a more regular basis. And it's been a really amazing journey. And my little boy was born in October last year. And here I am now. And now I'm at a point where I'm able to support other women who are pregnant or on maternity leave. And it's really fulfilling for me as well.
Oh my gosh, I love your story. And it's fascinating to hear how you got started. I mean, working in a completely different industry and how that has developed and taken you, but also providing you with opportunities and being open-minded to take on those opportunities and develop in different areas where you have that moment where you go, oh, this is it. I'm going to do this now. I'm going to go and start my own business. And then again, most people, when they would have found out they were pregnant, they would have possibly stopped and decided this is now not the right time to start my business. But again, you said with your mindset, you just went for it and thought, we've got to do this. Let's just see where it takes us. So I love the fact that you're saying you put yourself out there, you're this beacon now in order to help and support women who are either now on doing their maternity cover or who are now pregnant, but thinking still about starting their own businesses. And I really I'm fascinated with that, because it's some kind of it's another entity, it's another scope to look at things from a different angle. And that's what we're going to talk about today a little bit as well. It's about that mindset, you know, that success mindset, how that supports you as a female entrepreneur. And it doesn't just have to be for, you know, if you are pregnant or if you are on maternity leave and you already have a little one and you're starting and thinking about running a business. It can work in both ways. So
Absolutely.
why don't you talk to us a little bit about the success mindset? Are there a couple of steps there that you can talk to us about? I mean, just go to town with it. Just talk to us about it, because I think a lot of people now listening and watching this video could go really like, yeah, I've got so many limiting beliefs, you know, I'm stopping myself. Or some people might not even know that they're stopping themselves with their mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that, you know, if you can take anything away from this conversation, is that you choose how you react to every situation, and you can choose what you put onto situations. And yes, your internal beliefs will affect that, but as soon as you register that you can choose, that no one else is to blame for how you behave and how you feel, that's an incredibly empowering place to be. And that's the first step, really, in having a successful mindset. So let's just talk a little bit about beliefs and, you know, what they are. So a belief, first, it's not a fact. People talk about their beliefs as if they're facts, but they're really not. They're just their view of the world, whether that's about themselves, whether it's about the world in general, or if it's about other people and how other people should behave. And as soon as you can accept that, oh, what I believe here feels very true to me, but from that other person's perspective could be a completely different belief, you start to realize how much onus to put onto situations. And the example I like to use is about making the bed in the morning. So do you make your bed in the morning?
Every morning. Every morning.
And you believe it's a really important thing to do. It's how you start your day. It's a great way to start your day. And, you know, everyone who's a bed maker believes that. And, you know, it's quite shocking for people who are bed makers to the idea of not making their bed every morning.
That's true.
As a non-bed maker, I'm in the camp of, I believe I've got much better things to be wasting my time on. And, you know, I haven't got time for that. And I can see it from both points of view. And, you know, part of me wishes I was a bit of a bed maker, to be honest, but I don't have that belief in me. For me, it's just not important. But that doesn't make me wrong. It doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't make either of us wrong or right. And that's the beauty of belief. And once you can sort of step back, and maybe that's a silly example, but once you can step back and realize that everything you believe to be true isn't necessarily true, you just open up a huge amount of wisdom and potential that wasn't there. So if you think about a belief about yourself, we're talking about a much deeper, lower level limiting belief. Maybe I'm not good enough. If you really believe that about yourself, you can see the doors immediately start closing in front of you. You might not apply for the job that you really want to apply for, that you could be really good at if you didn't have that belief. You might not start the business that you really want to start, in which case this amazing idea that you've been nurturing might never go out to the world because of a belief that you have about yourself. So by releasing that belief, by telling yourself that isn't true, I've created that belief and now I don't believe it anymore, you're opening doors, which is an incredibly empowering experience.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And one of the things that really stands out there when it comes to beliefs, I always refer to the kind of stories that you're telling yourself. Everybody's got stories that they're telling themselves. And I've had so many of my clients as well, when they come on to me, they're saying, oh, well, you know, I couldn't really do this because, or I was thinking of doing this, but. And that always, the because or after the but, that's always when the stories are coming in. And it's the story is true for them because they believe it. And not just because of even them telling themselves the story, but there's that story originated from somewhere. Somebody else might have told them that. Or they might have heard it from somebody in a similar situation, and now they're believing that that applies to them as well. Yeah. And most of the times that story is an external thing coming into your internal belief. Yeah. And when I kind of got to that point myself as well, where I realized, oh my gosh, we're just telling ourselves stories, and stories are not real. Those external factors constantly bombarding us, those are stories that we are either accepting or not accepting. And I agree with you, because for me in particular as well, and talking to my clients about that, that kind of makes you go like, oh, so that means I've got a choice, back to what you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it comes down to, is choice. And there's a lot of stuff going on in our heads, all the time. I like to think of it as a little personal assistant that's sort of helping you out all the time. And, we're bombarded with information constantly. I think it's about 2 million pieces of information are hitting our senses all of the time. And if we tried to process every single one of those pieces of information, well, we'd just never get anything done, would we? So our brains are pretty amazing, and we have our little personal assistant in there that's filing all this information for us. And the filing cabinet it chooses is very much based on the stories that we tell ourselves. So the 3 filing cabinets, the main ones are delete, distort, or generalize. So the majority of information that comes into our senses just goes straight into that delete category. Before I started my business, I actually knew very few people who were entrepreneurs, who were business owners. But as soon as I started my business, everyone was an entrepreneur. Everyone I met owned a small business. And was that because everyone started a small business at the same time as me? Of course not. It's because I suddenly noticed them, and I suddenly stopped deleting the information that was right there. The other example would be pregnancy. As soon as you get pregnant, everyone out there is pregnant, and everyone's pushing a buggy, and of course they were all doing that already, but you just didn't notice them. You were deleting that information. And it's all about the stories you're telling yourself about what's important in your world right at that point in time. And then we distort things. So we create things from our stories, we gather evidence from our stories, and we create a reality that is actually not reality. So if your story is I'm not good enough, we might put something out on social media, for example, and not get very many likes, and therefore we go, oh well, our story says I'm not good enough, and here's some more evidence, and we've distorted this situation into being something that's not necessarily what's true. And then of course we have generalizations, which is a really useful filing box. They're all really useful in their own way, but generalizations are how we learn. But it's being aware that actually this is also how we make judgments about ourselves and other people. So generalizations is where our stories become our reality. It becomes the facts that aren't actually facts, but not just about ourselves, but about other people. So we may see somebody, if you think about, it's quite a sort of old-fashioned idea now, but the idea of a blonde woman not being as intelligent as a woman with brunette hair is absolute nonsense. But somehow this generalization was created and people started to believe it. But that's sort of what our brain's done, because it puts it into that filing cabinet. And actually being aware of that knowledge, being aware that that's what your mind's doing, because of course, remember that your mind is your mind, you are in control of it. You can start to go, hold on, what am I deleting here? Hold on, what am I generalizing? What generalizations am I making at the moment? And have I distorted this situation and created something that isn't the reality that's actually what's going on? And that's a really powerful way of realizing the choice you have over your mindset.
Yes. Oh my goodness. You've absolutely nailed it on the head with that explanation and the 3 filing cabinets. It just makes a lot of sense. I always refer to the fact that you've got to think about how you talk to yourself and what you are telling yourself, because a lot is happening in the subconscious. You're not even conscious about it. You don't even know what you're telling yourself. Yeah. But it's those beliefs, those habits that you've been running over and over again, and the way you've been filing things into those cabinets that are now running in the subconscious. So you're constantly telling yourself stories that you don't even realize you're doing. Because let's face it, there's, like you said, there's so much information that's coming in on a daily basis. So consciously, you would not be able to concentrate on every single bit. But subconsciously, things are being filed in one of those 4 cabinets. And because of those, now you've got stories. And those are the stories that is constantly going over in your mind again and again. So that's why I'm always referring back to my clients and saying, what are you telling yourself on a daily basis? Sometimes I even just say to them, just go and do a bit of journaling. Just write down what's going on in your mind. And you'll sometimes even discover like, oh my gosh, I'm really thinking this. Why am I thinking this? What has kind of led me to think that? But then at the same time, now that you've journaled it, now you're kind of taking it out of that cabinet and you're putting it on paper and you're going, right, what am I going to fill up that cabinet now? What positive information, what new things do I want to fill up in that space, in that void? But I just love the story and how you're telling it by having these 4 cabinets, because I'm going to use that. Sorry, I'm going to use that from now on, because it just makes so much more sense explaining it that way.
Yeah. And I thought, what you said about sort of the unconscious, and, the unconscious mind is what's so powerful. And, scientists are really starting to realize how powerful the unconscious mind is. And, I've worked with clients who have a story that's in their unconscious, which is a completely opposite story to what is in their conscious. And this is where we get conflict and we get stuck. So, because it's our unconscious that will always win. That story that is being held in our unconscious, it's about really digging deep to find out what that story is. The example I like to use is I've worked with a lot of clients who want to work and manage their weight, and they'll come to me and they'll say, Lauren, I want to lose a certain amount of weight. And I'll say, okay, how are you going to do that? What do you need to do? Well, I need to eat less of this certain food, and I need to eat more of this certain food, and I need to demonstrate more of this certain behavior. And then we go, that's great. We all know this. We all know that, the way to lose weight is to eat less and move more. But what's going on in the unconscious that is preventing that behavior? And actually, that's what is going to win. And I see it as sort of the unconscious and conscious speaking different languages. And consciously, we say, I know what I need to do to succeed. But if unconsciously, we're telling ourselves a story that is, I'm not good enough, or I don't deserve money or success or whatever, that's the story that's going to win. And that's why it's so important to get that mindset and get deep into what your internal stories are, because that will affect every behavior that you do.
Yes. And also what for those of you listening and watching this video, what you also got to understand is your habits lie in your subconscious, not in your conscious mind. Because you would tell yourself and say, well, I know I would need to exercise more in order to have a healthier lifestyle. But your habit of not going out on a daily basis, even just for a walk, lies in your subconscious. So you're not going to do it because it's not part of your habit.
Yes.
So what you need to do is bring it to your conscious thought and also take the action on it. Because so many people say, oh, I am going to do this. And then a day goes by, 2 days go by, and they didn't do it. Let's look at an example. New Year's resolutions. How many people start the new year with a New Year's resolution and say, I am going to do this? And the first 3-5 days, they maybe really start thinking about it and doing it and taking the action on what it is that they want to do. But then 5-7 days later, they're back into their old habits and they just continuing normal as they would always have done. But that's because your habits, which is in your subconscious, wins. It's winning because of that habit. And if you're not continuously thinking about changing that habit in your conscious mind to create a new habit that then sits in that filing cabinet as a habit, you are never going to fulfill your New Year's resolutions or any other goals or dreams that you're setting out for yourself.
Absolutely. And this is the key. And this is what is very hard. And I think as adults, we actually find it harder. When we were children and we learned to walk, we didn't give up the first time we fell down. Otherwise, none of us would be walking. When we first tried to ride a bike, if we gave up every time we fell down, we'd never be able to do that. So creating a habit, we can all do it. We can all break old habits and we can all create new habits if we choose to, but it does take practice. You know, if you want to, like you said, go out for a walk every day, creating that as a habit will take time and you need to repeat it. So if you think back to the first day of high school, I remember my first day of high school and there were all these different buildings and, you know, I was trying to navigate these, you know, corridors. And I remember thinking, how does anyone ever learn their way around like this labyrinth? And then every day I had to, because I had to go from class to class, navigate myself around. And some days I might ask for help. Some days I might find it more difficult than others. But every day I had to navigate myself around the school. And then one day I just knew how to do it. I just did it without even thinking. It became habit. I know that this corridor goes this way. I know that going through this door will take me to the wrong classroom, you know, whatever. And that's what it's all about. We just, you know, repeating processes over and over again and analysing them. You know, so you mentioned journaling. What an amazing tool to help you create habits and analyse how you're getting on with that. But it takes work.
Yeah. And I think that walks very much hand in hand with starting and running a business, because when you start a business, trust me, not everything is going to go your way. You are going to stumble over so many obstacles. But I always say that there's no such thing as mistakes. There's only lessons.
Yes.
So with every stumble...
my phrase is no such thing as failure, only feedback. So exactly the same, with just slightly different words. I love it.
Yeah, no, but that's the main thing, because so many people think that, oh, I'm going to start a business, I'm going to run a business, I'm going to be successful. Yes, you will be successful, but you shouldn't give up. No, running a business and starting a business is very much about creating new habits, success habits, but it starts here. It doesn't start with your strategy. It doesn't start with what business you are going to run. I mean, you can start any business. The idea is to start something that you love, because you'll have the motivation behind it in order to make a success of it. But then also to create the new habits that is going to take you to where you want to go. Yeah. And I find this very much now on a strategy side, because I'm a strategic business coach. So many clients come to me and go, oh, but I've tried this strategy and it didn't work. And I've tried this strategy and it didn't work. And then I went to this strategy. It's like, well, there's your problem. You're trying too many strategies. You're not just starting with one and sticking with it and running it continuously in order to see the success, because you've got to create those new habits. You've got to run with them over and over again in order to see the success at the end of the day. Any strategy could work for you. Any business could work for you, but it starts up here, how you think, talk to yourself, and how you are creating those new habits in your subconscious mind.
No, absolutely. And, you know, and consistency, you know, so, you know, with your strategy, you know, consistently, like we talked about walking, you know, if you're going to do it, go out every day. You know, you're the expert on strategies in business, but if you decide you're going to choose a specific strategy, you know, consistent approach to that. So is it every day that you have to do something, or every week? You know, what is it you have to do regularly and consistently to make it happen? And that is how you will create the neurotransmitters that will just make automatic behaviors, because our mind controls our body.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And just a silly example there, but just from a business aspect, when I started my podcast, only because we're doing a podcast episode here, when I started my podcast, I was so excited getting my podcast done. But then immediately I had this brick wall that I just hit, where I was just like, oh my gosh, I've got to get a podcast out every Thursday. I've got to create the content. I've got to record it. I've got it edited. I've got to get it out there. And my brain just went, when I was like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to do this. So in the beginning, I was wholeheartedly into my podcast, and then things slipped. You know, weeks went by when I didn't have a podcast episode going out. Months even went by, and I just felt so like, oh, I promised them I'm going to get a podcast episode to them every Thursday, and nothing is going out. And you just feel so much more like you're not in control anymore. But then I thought, okay, let's go back. And I started the whole process again. And to date, I'm so happy that I had to go through that to realize that I've got to be consistent with every Thursday. My audience will get a podcast episode from me. And you know what? I'm so glad I did it, because I've created that habit now. And I'm so far ahead now with podcast episodes that I don't have to worry anymore about next Thursday or the Thursday after that, because now I've created a contingency plan. I've got a strategy in place, and it's working beautifully.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on that, you know, like within business, things go wrong. Things don't always go to plan. Maybe it's something, you know, in your personal life that'll come in. And, you know, obviously for me and my journey, it was my pregnancy. And I'd never been pregnant before. So I didn't know, you know, I had days where I was so tired that I couldn't work on or in my business. And I had to, you know, make that difficult choice. But it's about how you react internally to those situations. And you know, you touched on it, but I think offering yourself some compassion is also super key. And this is what I talk to my clients about a lot, is offer yourself the compassion that you would probably offer someone else if you were having a conversation with them. We can be so critical to ourselves. And we've talked about beliefs, and they're a huge part, and the stories we tell ourselves, and they're a huge part of our internal communication. But there's also the self-talk. You know, what are we saying to ourselves? And is that self-talk a true friend, or is it a harsh critic? And more often than not, unfortunately, it's a harsh critic. And actually going, what would a true friend say to me in this moment? Would they say, you're doing a really great job, and you've got so much to give, and you're trying really hard, and it's okay to have a day where you don't feel like you're firing on all cylinders? You know, would they say that? Or would they say you're a complete failure and you're totally useless? I know what my friends would say to me, and I know what I would say to my friends. So why do I choose to sometimes use harsher, more critical language with myself? And that is a very conscious choice. I am not going to be cruel to myself. I'm going to offer myself some self-compassion. And that's an incredibly warming and, again, incredibly empowering feeling. And I would encourage all listeners to do that, really, you know, and watchers, you know, do that. Offer yourself some self-compassion when things aren't necessarily going exactly how you perceive that they should be.
Yeah, I've got an example. Many years ago, I used to have this bad habit where if something went wrong or if I made a mistake, I would just go like, oh, stupid hen, why did you do that? Why would you just go and say something like that or do something that's stupid? And I didn't even know that I was doing it. And my husband picked up on it one day, and he's like, why do you keep on telling yourself that you're doing stupid things or you're saying stupid things? And I was like, what do you mean? And he pointed it out, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize I was doing that, but I did it. And I stopped it. So much so when I was conscious about it, I realized I had to stop it. But then it made me think, what else am I doing? How am I talking to myself in other ways? And then self-compassion, like you said, I never gave myself that compassion where I was speaking to myself going, that's fine. You did your best. Well done. Well done, you. High five. You know, I never used to do that. So much so now that I've got to the stage where I'm talking less negative to myself and more positive to myself and offering myself that compassion. But I've also taken it one step further by making sure that now the individuals I surround myself with, the people that I want in my circle, where I'm protecting myself, my energy circle, that they also have the same mindset as me, where they talk me up, where they are giving me that kind of compassion and that kind of support that I need.
Yeah. And I thoroughly believe that, you know, the energy you put out is the energy that you will get back. Yeah. And if you know, you can choose who you surround yourself with. You know, if you choose to give out positive energy, you will get people match behaviors. You know, so if you choose to be around other people who are more positive, you will naturally be more positive yourself. Yeah. And they will get some of your positivity and you'll get some of theirs. And it's a wonderful, like, you know, positive energy going around. But the same works with negativity. You know, we've all you know, been around, a bit of a mood hoover, who has, you know, loads of really great things going on in their life, but has picked on the one thing that's not going so well that they want to complain about. And as soon as they start complaining about that, oh gosh, then we've got something we want to complain about. And that's our little personal assistant again. They're choosing, oh, we won't delete that information, that negativity, we'll distort that and we'll create it into a bigger reality than actually needs to be. Whereas if we were with the positive people, we might have just put it in the delete folder straight away.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important. What you put out, you get back. And I'm really passionate about that as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And I've seen it in more ways than one in my business as well. In the beginning, I wasn't attracting the right kind of people because my energy wasn't right. The way I was talking to myself, what I said about me, you know, saying stupid things to myself.
Yeah.
But then as soon as I started changing that, everything started shifting in my business. And it's not because of the actionable steps I was taking. Yes, that worked and that's part of it. But it's like I said, it all started here. 80% is all about mindset. So then when I was in that kind of sense about working with people, giving out that kind of energy, getting that energy back, reciprocity, did I say that right? So it's all about reciprocity, where you really have what you give is what you get, just exactly like you said. But then I realized fairly quickly, because of what I'm putting out there, I was starting to attract and bring those people into my circle, and I was getting the right clients, but also I was getting other female entrepreneurs that I'm now collaborating with. We've got the right mindset, we've got the energy, and we're working together so well. But I never would have gotten to that point if my mindset wasn't right, and if I wasn't having that kind of right energy going out for my business and for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the most powerful thing you can do as an entrepreneur. And you know, if you're, whether you've just started your business or you've had a business for a while and want to take it to the next level, the biggest change you can make is looking at your mindset. And you know, it's not that I wouldn't say I've met the perfect mindset person. Everyone has work to do on their mindset. You know, we all do. It's about going, you know, I want to develop, and putting out that positivity and registering that your positive thoughts are strong. They're the ones that will attract you what you want and you desire, and they will be the thoughts that bring your goals into reality. Your negative thoughts are weak and they will not lead you to success. So, you know, it's a bit of a no-brainer really about which ones, you know, we should be choosing. And sometimes it takes work to be able to make that choice.
Yeah, exactly. And I've heard so many women say to me as well, it's like, but I really want this. I really want to, you know, have a successful business. And I really, really want to work with this coach or work with this person. I really need this. And it's like, yeah, that's great. It's great if you want it. Consciously, you know, that's what you want. But what are you going to do subconsciously to get there? And that's where the mind work starts. And it comes back to the fact that what you said in the beginning, everybody's got a decision. Everybody can make a decision. You can make a decision now to go, okay, so I need to work on my mindset. How do I start with that? And I think we've just given you loads of tools here on how to get started. Okay, well, Lauren, thank you so much. I think this was really valuable. I really appreciate just, you know, coming on and talking to us all about this. Before we let you go, I know that you've got an amazing Facebook group and you want to make it available to my audience as well. So why don't you talk to them about the Facebook group? And obviously for those of you listening and watching this video, we'll make sure that if you want to join the group, by all means do it. And the link will be below in my show notes.
Brilliant. Yes. So like I mentioned, I started my business when I was pregnant, and I did look for support and guidance, and it wasn't easily available. I worked with a coach who, while being an excellent coach, he just did not understand the what my body was going through, what my mind was going through. And actually, I found it quite difficult to work with him. So I realized that the support and guidance for women who are either pregnant or on maternity leave, who are starting or growing their businesses, just wasn't there. And that's why I set up the Expecting Entrepreneurs Facebook group. It's a free group. It's a community of other women who are in that situation. And we talk a lot about mindfulness. We talk a lot about how our mindset is so important. We do goal setting, we do accountability, but we also share some, you know, real mama stories. when we're struggling. You know, if we've had a really disturbed sleep, for example, you know, we can really relate to each other in that space, and it's a beautiful, safe space. So yeah, if anyone of your listeners are in that space, I would be very happy to welcome them into the community.
Oh my gosh. And thank you so much for making that available. And I'm sure, you know, what I love about these groups and these kind of communities that everybody's developing is you really meet some incredible people who are, like I said, from the same mindset, who have the same kind of energy as you. And some of those I've always seen coming out the other end where they become such great friends. So no, I love the fact that you've created such an invaluable community, really. So for those of you listening, like I said, the link is below in my show notes. By all means, go and sign up, join the group, and I'm sure that, you know, you can really dig into some meet some other people, but also getting some great benefits and information from it as well. Lauren, thank you so much again. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate the fact that you came on here. I'm sure for those of you listening, you've had some great insights that you can take away and obviously establish them in your business as well.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Amazing. Thank you. Take care.